Let's be honest, roguelites are 10 a penny. It used to be the case that they came along quite rarely, but now we see a few each week. What is rare is when we get something a little bit new within the genre, like Absolum, which combines beat-em-up elements, some choice in terms of exploration, single or co-op play as well as online, and more superficially, man, it looks good. Published by .emu and developed by Guard Crush Games and Supermonks, Guard Crush, who worked on the amazing Streets of Rage 4, this seems to have come out of nowhere. But is this rogue 'em up gonna be a knockout or get knocked out? Well, my name is Mark Walker. Welcome back to SwitchUp. Now let's find out. Let's kick off with storyline, and it's set within a fantasy world where something very fantasy is taking place in the land of Talam. It's been shattered by a magical cataclysm. The people of this world completely mistrust magic, finding themselves persecuted, tracked down and even killed, giving the Sun King a good excuse to enslave any wizards he finds and begin a tyrannical rule, which is where a rebellion forms, and I think you can see where you're coming in here. Under the lead of the High Enchantress, you're going out on runs. It's just an excuse to punch things really, although it does try and do a little of the Hades storytelling, whereby dialogues alter ever so slightly, and while not all of it lands, I really enjoy the fact that each of those characters is fully voice acted. It just gets a tad self-indulgent at times. Gameplay-wise is anything but. On the face of it, it looks like a standard beat-em-up. As we know from roguelites, you may reach the end in air quotes, but the chances of you succeeding and certainly of reaching the true end of the game are nigh on zero, as failure and repetition are baked into their design. There are 4 playable characters to choose from. Galandra, the slightly comically named Carl, who's a dwarf with a couple of pistols, the nimble rogue Cider, and a pretty sweet floating frog wizard called Brome. One thing you might pick up on quite quickly is there seems to be an underlying love of the classic Golden Axe, one of my favorites from back in the day. From some of the combat moves to things like mounts, and even that little goblin critter that you used to have to smack to get his gold, there are a lot of nods to that classic. Combat takes place from a side perspective, and yes, on the face of it, it is a standard beat-em-up. You're moving from left to right, punching things as hard as you can in the face, and trying not to lose all of your health. Where things differ is in the controls. Each character has a light and heavy attack, with magic moves using Arcana. But here's where things get a little different. Normally in a beat-em-up, to avoid damage, you move on the Y plane, so you essentially move straight up or down to try and avoid that damage, or you use a block. Here you have a specific dodge move, and for my first few playthroughs, I felt like it was really badly implemented. It felt like it just didn't register, it didn't work. I was like, this dodge is rubbish. I keep getting hit. That is until I realized I was doing it wrong. The dodge is almost a deflect move. So if an enemy's doing an attack and you dodge straight towards them, this causes the deflect effect, which can be seen by a blue splash effect. This then puts them into a staggered state, and you can begin to deliver some sweet chin music. As well as this, you have a sidestep, but you do also have a version of the traditional dodging, whereby if you're heading on the Y-axis and you tap that dodge move, it will perform a sidestep. You can follow a sidestep with an attack that will launch you directly back to the enemy's plane, once again doing a load of damage. Now they can block and parry and deflect, but by using those mechanics effectively, it becomes a much more tactical game than most beat-em-ups. And that's for better and sometimes worse. Why do I say that? Well, take Glen for example. He loves his beat-em-ups. For him, the beauty of them is using the simplistic controls that you would expect, combined with the traditional methods of dodging, that creates that lovely flow that some of the best in the genre have. The flow is different here, and as I say, for some that will be a good thing and for others it won't be. Personally, I felt that kept it interesting, but it does take a bit of getting used to. Now, the stages are filled with other items. You can pick things up off the ground. There are mounts, even dinosaurs that you can ride on. But it is a little stingy with things like health. Between areas, you may enter a location that lets you replenish some of it, but you won't be finding roast chickens every 5 minutes. And if you do find a carrot or something else, it's only going to give you a very small sliver of health until you've put points into a system to improve the amount you get. And that's where the classic roguelite comes in. Now for me, a roguelite lives and dies on the types of items that you can collect. I believe here they're called rituals, and between certain stages, you pick them up and you know what I'm going to say. They give you some form of passive or active effect. Does it add fire to your move? Does it increase your overall health? And these are fine. I did feel like they were slightly limited though. There's a location within the hub level where you can go and have a look at all the potentials, and I just don't think there's enough. Any Isaac fan will tell you that the 800 plus items you can collect is what keeps that game, combined with the amazing gameplay, so interesting. You never quite know what you're going to get. I didn't find that here. Now thankfully the gameplay is enjoyable, and each level is ended with a rather impressive looking boss. I was also pleased to see though that the bosses react properly to your abilities. So if you pick up something that's going to case them and hold them within a shield, unlike some games where suddenly the boss is invulnerable to that, here your magic works on them as well. With that said, the balancing of them not quite as good. Some of them, they stick to the rules, they attack you on the same plane, while others do huge area of effect moves that do feel a little unfair. The final component to Absolum is the world map. You will get little tasks to complete. Maybe you have to go to a specific area, and that's where the choice that I spoke of comes in. At the end of each section, you can choose your next path. It's not made very clear, and earlier on we didn't even realize this was a thing, but it turns out you can bring up the world map, have a look at a specific location that you're supposed to go to, and gradually make your way there by choosing the correct path. This adds in a good bit of replayability and also removes the feeling that you're going to see exactly the same areas each time you play. The experience controls well, it has to be said. There's a nice fluidity to it, and there are even options within the menu where you can literally tweak the input responsiveness. So it all sounds very good, doesn't it? And yeah, it is, but both Glen and I felt it lacked something. It's that special sauce, isn't it, that games like Hades have got so dialed. This one, I think, through the lack of item pickups, or at least the interest provided by them, combined with the beat-em-up style gameplay, has the potential to get a little more repetitious. Thankfully, the inclusion of local co-op and online play, to some extent, mitigates that, and as you get to grips with those controls, it improves. But the narrative didn't grip me. It felt quite generic, like Fantasy 101. Gameplay scores 15 out of 20, while the controls score 16 out of 20. I will say they do lose points for a few systems that just don't land. There's one, for example, where you have to time a counter-attack at the exact same time as your enemy, and it's nigh on impossible. Even in the tutorial, it seems like the timings are just off. It even goes so far as to say, if it happens to happen in the game, capitalize on it, which is fine, but the execution of that, yeah, it doesn't feel good. Now, while this is a Switch 1 review, we've played most of our footage using Switch 2. When it comes to Switch 1, things are a little different. Yes, it targets 60 frames per second, and it actually holds that most of the time. But there does seem to be a strange bug whereby in certain instances, the performance seems to drop to 30 frames per second. Now, I don't know if they're using double buffered VSync or triple buffered, and it seems to occur randomly. As you can probably see, this footage that you're looking at right now is Switch 1 and it looks great, but then I'm fighting a boss and suddenly performance drops down for a few moments and goes straight back up to 60 again. A little patch needed there, I think, to tighten things up a bit, as none of this occurs on Switch 2. This hand-drawn style and the crunchy sound effects really do work well together. The soundtrack as well offers quite a lot of variety, and it comes from Yuka Kitamura, who brought us the legendary Sekiro Shadows Die Twice soundtrack and that little-known indie Elden Ring. For me, the biggest win when it comes to sound though are those sound effects. This has a crunchiness to it, combined with HD rumble, that makes your punches feel impactful. And that is really important, as you will be doing that an awful lot. I mentioned that the main character's voice acting is pretty decent. What I didn't mention is that a couple of the side cast I found a little irritating, but it's not a major issue. Those lovely looking visuals, they score 18 out of 20. Sound and audio, that scores 17 out of 20. Absolum retails at £22.49 or your regional equivalent, and it's a 2.4GB download. This is the exact same price they charged for Streets of Rage, as well as TMNT Shredder's Revenge. All things on balance here, I give value 16 out of 20. So there we have it. Absolum is a really interesting direction to take the roguelite formula, and I haven't seen it done in quite this way before. I don't think some of the punches land quite as hard as they could have done had they really mixed up the quantity of items and the effects that they have. Still, it is enjoyable, and it's admirable to see local co-op as well as online, and it all runs so smoothly. It gets a SwitchUp score of 82%. Let me know in the comments, is this one you've had your eye on? I was instantly taken by the look of it. It looks amazing, doesn't it? Let me know down in the comments. A big thanks to all of you that enjoy the content, to our Patreons, our members, and as always, for all things Switch, all the time, keep it Switch up. Cheers, guys. See ya!